With great power comes great responsibility. For Spider-Man, that phrase was burned into his soul by the death of his Uncle Ben. We've all been told that was his defining moment, the failure that created the hero. But what if that's not the whole story? What if we've all been looking at the wrong tragedy? In a story bluntly titled The Night Gwen Stacy Died, the Green Goblin, having finally figured out Peter's secret identity, the very act of saving her is what killed her. That moment didn't just kill a beloved character. Many see it as the event that slammed the door on the optimistic Silver Age of comics and violently kicked open the doors to the darker, more complex Bronze Age. This didn't just create a hero. It created a man burdened by trauma. Uncle Ben's death created Spider-Man, the hero driven by a code of responsibility. It was a lesson. But Gwen Stacy's death defined Peter Parker, the man who has to live with the devastating consequences of that power. It wasn't a lesson. It was a life sentence. One failure gave him his mantra, but the other gave him his heart, creating the complex, haunted, and deeply human hero we know today. The guilt over Gwen became a core part of his personality, the one that created his code, or the one that broke his heart. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Making him more cautious, hypercritical of himself, and haunted by the knowledge that a victory can look and feel exactly like a defeat. This tragedy is what cemented loss as the central theme of Spider-Man's entire life. Drags his girlfriend, Gwen Stacy, to the top of a bridge in New York, and it's why Gwen's death hits so much harder. Uncle Ben's death was a failure of inaction. The lesson was straightforward. If guilt-ridden, if I had only acted, he would be alive. That's a guilt you can channel into doing good. Now there is a classic comic book debate here. The text says at S, the George Washington Bridge. The lesson there is infinitely more twisted. I acted, I did everything I was supposed to do, ... and she died anyway. In fact, I might have killed her myself. That's a completely different and soul-crushing kind of burden. It teaches Peter a darker lesson. Sometimes even with all his power and the best intentions, he can still fail. It showed him the terrifying limits of his own heroism, proving that his very existence puts those he loves in danger, and his desperate attempts to save them might be the very thing that damns them. But the art is a dead ringer for the Brooklyn Bridge. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more where this came from. Later comics even retconned it to be the Brooklyn Bridge. What if Spider-Man's greatest failure, the one that truly forged the man he would become, wasn't the death that started his journey? Gwen's death gave him his pain. You can see that pain echo in every future relationship, especially his bond with Mary Jane Watson, who had to connect with a man forever altered by that grief. After Gwen, Spider-Man wasn't just a hero trying to do good. He was a man desperately trying to stop the past from repeating itself, knowing deep down that he might not be able to. But the one that almost ended it, the real crucible for Peter Parker, wasn't a robbery he could have stopped. It was a fall from a bridge, where his best efforts, his greatest powers, ended in absolute, soul-shattering failure. And this time, Peter acts. He does exactly what a hero is supposed to do. He fires a perfect web line and snags her ankle just before she hits the water. For half a second, it's a victory. Then a tiny sound effect hangs in the air right next to her head. Snap.
Ow.
Look, don't get me wrong, the death of Uncle Ben is foundational. It's the origin story. A random burglar, a selfish moment, and a gunshot changed Peter Parker's life forever. Peter's failure was simple and brutal. He had the power to do something, and he didn't. And that failure of omission became his entire philosophy. It's what created the superhero. Every web swing, every person saved, every single ounce of responsibility he feels is a direct reaction to that one moment of irresponsibility. It taught Peter the hard lesson that he must use his power for good, because if he just stands by, people die. But this was a lesson he could learn from, a mistake he could spend his entire life trying to make up for. It was a starting point. The moment that defined the limits of that power was so much worse. It all went down in the Amazing Spider-Man number 121. Whatever the location, the Goblin throws her from the top. The whiplash from the sudden stop broke her neck. This is where the two tragedies couldn't be more different. Gwen's death was a failure of action. If you're into deep dives like this that pull apart the characters we thought we knew, the fallout from Gwen's death was permanent. While Uncle Ben's death gave Peter his mission, when you get right down to it, you just have to look at the results. So, I have to ask you, which failure do you think truly defines Spider-Man?